Hello, everybody, and welcome back once more. Now, we're going to talk about Metatron, but this is partly because Wendy asked me a question about him for one of her clients, and partly because I'm actually writing about who Metatron is in my history of the galaxy that I'm writing at the moment. Because there's a story there. We know here the word or the name Metatron, we relate to an archangel. And in fact, you know, although there's very little said in the Bible about angels, and archangels in particular, we have a whole mythology around angels that has developed, a lot of it relatively recently. There's almost nothing about angels in the Bible, and when they are, they're almost in the form of what are called the Watchers. You know, they're not beings with great wings and things like this. They are men. They seem to be men who come and visit a prophet or whoever it is to deliver a message. So you know, the couple of instances there are, they really are humanoid or human messengers. So the kind of understanding of archangels and things like that we've got has really kind of developed with its own life. And as I say, I think very deliberately so. We've talked once or twice, touched on archangels like Michael and things like this. They're very deliberately designed and crafted narratives, particularly for the new age now. But Metatron, I mean, our understanding of Metatron that we have from Jewish law, well, it's not really in the Bible, it's in the books of Enoch, really, is that actually Metatron was, when he, you know, on this earth, was Enoch. Was he a prophet? I think he was a prophet. Anyway, he got translated and went to heaven. Transmutated, or whatever you want to call it. And the books of Enoch sort of tell a lot of his visions and things like this, and fiery chariots and all sorts of things, which are interpreted by most people these days as being, you know, he saw spaceships and stuff like this. And he got taken to heaven in a spaceship, so he got taken off the earth by aliens, effectively. But once he got translated, transmutated, whatever, you know, taken off the earth by aliens, however, he then became Metatron. This is the law. He then became Metatron, known as Metatron, the archangel Metatron. And Metatron is the greatest of the angels. I think Michael might have some issues with that, but you know, these things never seem to sit in the same box together, fighting it out. So yeah, he is the greatest of the angels, to the extent that he's often called, he's like the right hand of God, and he's called the lesser Yahweh. I've seen him referred to as the lesser Yahweh. Now, my understanding of Metatron and my knowledge of Metatron goes back a very, very long way, long before humanity was on the earth. And it might make you start to think twice when I say to you, Enoch, the prophet known as Enoch, was actually an Anunnaki.
Wow.
So everything that we think we know within the New Age law and everything like this about Enoch stroke Metatron is very clearly not quite what you think it is. And then when I come to tell you who Metatron is and what happened to Metatron, you'll start to see how basically a whole fairy tale has been built up to create a being that people will worship and give their energy to, effectively.
That is a mimic?
It's a mimic, it's false, it's reversal energy, it's part of the fallen agenda.
Okay, so tell us then a little bit more then about Metatron, because I think you and I have had a discussion before where you have explained to me that there are elements of Metatron that are sound, but they have been very much buried. What,
Yeah.
talk me
Well,
through.
Metatron comes from the Metatron collective. It's not an individual, it's a collective of energy, a vast consciousness collective. And Metatron is an aspect of one of the great God world entities called the Giovanni, Jehovani, Giovanni, God world entity. So it's a vast consciousness, and Metatron is an aspect of that. The Metatron collective is an aspect of that, and we would really see that as like a vast sun, a great sun body from beyond our universe, and it comes from the Metatron collective is part of what are called the Elohai lines. Now, the Elohai are one of the founder races in that came into our universe to create our universe, as it were. So they're one of the cosmic lineages that are the founder lineages here. But the ones that came here are an aspect of the greater ones from the God world, and the Metatron collective are from that family, from the Elohai family. So our universe was founded a long, long time ago. Something took place called the Lyran Wars. Various races were seeded. Something took place called the Lyran Wars, where a couple of the races started to digress, and full out war ensued, and massive damage was done to both the upper stargates of this universe and some of the structural integrity of this universe. And one of the races that was responsible, shall we say, for this was, they called themselves the Anu Elohim, but they came from a race at the non-digressed level. They were called the Anu, and they were a hybrid race, partially Elohim and partially from another founder race called the Brahmarama. So the Anu, when they digressed, took on themselves the name the Anu Elohim. And what was initially tried during the long period towards the end of the Lyran Wars, it then went into more galactic wars as a great diaspora sort of spread out, and the fallen races were busy building empires and conquering people and stuff like this. But there was the founder races attempted to rehabilitate some of the fallen races. So in order to help rehabilitate the digressed DNA and consciousness of the Anu Elohim, the Metatron collective from outside the universe, because they were of the same lineage, they had Elohai lineage, they were asked if they would help with the rehabilitation of the Anu Elohim, and they agreed. So this aspect of this great Giovanni consciousness entity, an aspect of it agreed to come here to help with that, and that's Metatron. So we're talking, it's very esoteric in many ways. So I'm hoping I'm not losing you. If I am, just shout at me. And the way they chose to try and rehabilitate the Anu Elohim is there was another universe beyond our own where that was partially fallen, called Weezadrak. It was a partially fallen. We were also partially fallen because of the damage that had taken place. So Metatron Collective decided that if they took the Anu Elohim from our universe to the partially fallen but trying to rehabilitate Wiesedrack universe, and then they could all get on with rehabilitation together. So they would all be in the same place and all, you know, working on the same agenda together. That was the best idea. So they put in place a passageway called, you'll either hear it called the Eye of Metatron or the Eye of Yahweh, one or the other. It's the same thing. So it's a passageway from our universe to the Wiesedrack universe, which was at that time partially fallen. So the Metatron, aspects of the Metatron collective were escorting Anu Elohim through to the Wiesedrack universe. But once the Anu Elohim got there, basically they had a different idea about what was going on, and they got together with the Wiesedracks, the supposedly rehabilitating Wiesedracks, and they put their heads together and decided that actually what they'd do is they'd try to conquer, go back, use this Eye of Yahweh passageway to go back and you know, take over the original time matrix. And so kind of like the rehabilitation thing all got put on the back burner, and they went back to their bad old ways, as it were. And they tried to capture the Eye of Metatron, or the Eye of Yahweh. They tried to capture it, damaging it badly in the process, and forcing, because of what happened, the whole Wiesedrack universe went from semi-fallen to fully fallen.
Okay.
So their takeover attempt failed, but they pulled the Wiesedrack universe into full fall as a result of it, because of the huge environmental damage that was done and the damage to the DNA templating. It just, you know, it ruptured and digressed so much. But the Metatron entities, or the aspects of the Metatron collective who have been acting as escorts and taking them through and were stationed in the Wiesedrack universe to help with rehabilitation, became trapped.
Oh.
So they
became trapped in a fallen,
in a fallen, and a fallen universe is it's a complete, it's a phantom system. It's you know, the environment is just very low frequency energies. So the Metatron collective, who the aspects of it, or the parts of it that were trapped in the Wiesedrack universe themselves fell. It's kind of like you know, you're in a swamp. The swamp affects you. Not much you can do about it.
Okay.
Now, at this point, those of the Metatron collective family who were not in the Wiesedrack universe were feeling the pain of those who were, because they are connected energetically. They're part of a vast consciousness collective. So there is this connection between them. So those who were trapped and digressed, you know, that was being felt by those who weren't. So I mean, I mean, it's just horrible to contemplate when you think about it. Now, there are then two stories about what happened next. One was that those of the Metatron family who were left made the sacrifice in order to keep the family together, to fall and join the fallen Metatrons. That's one story. There is another story, and you know, if I'm absolutely honest, I'm not entirely sure which one's true. Doesn't really matter, because you know, the whole family of Metatron fell, whichever way you look at it. The other is that when you have a collective such as the Metatron collective, if the majority of the collective is in one state and a small minority of it is in another state, so fallen, not fallen, the majority will pull the minority into their state of being. Now, what I have seen is that 89% of the Metatron collective was in Weezerdrack at the time it fell.
89%.
89% of them, yeah. They were there, they were escorting them through, they were helping with the rehabilitation. So the majority of the Metatron collective was in Weezerdeck. And as a result of that, the remaining family got pulled in to join that collective, whichever way they fell, which was a great tragedy. But it then went from bad to worse.
What happened?
Because, I mean, I think we've talked about the victimizer.
Yeah.
That sort of virus, mind control virus, well, this was very much a part of the Weezerdrack environment, because the Weezerdrack environment had been taken down by the Borger. And so the Metatrons, the captured Metatrons, went into full victimizer mode.
And they then turned bad.
They turned very bad, very bad. As the victim, playing the victim role, it was, well, you know, if the Elohai hadn't asked us to do this, if the Rishi consciousnesses hadn't asked us to do this, this wouldn't have happened to us. So it's not our fault, you know, we're fallen, we're in this dreadful state because of them, and they're doing nothing about it, you know. So no responsibility for the fact that they agreed to take this job on and the way they carried it out and conducted it. But they then vowed to take down every Elohai in creation as well.
Wow.
So they fully joined the Borger, fully joined the Weezer in becoming, in attacking Christos races effectively. And you know, some of the worst machinery that we have here installed here, the AI machinery and things like this, are from the Metatron collective. There's something called Metatronic machinery, AI machinery, Metatronic reversals, which is, I mean, this AI, it takes the organic templating energy currents of an individual, a being, a construct, a geometry, and twists it into reversal currents, into fallen consciousness currents. So, you know, they came up with all of this. Metatronic mutation is something we are very familiar with down on this planet. You know, effectively the Metatronic reversal energies take out part of the organic template and replace it with a synthetic artificial energies. And depending upon how much they take out, there is a chance for a Christos being to come back from it. But if too much of it has been reversed out, there's no coming back. You go from being semi-fallen to fully fallen. So, and that wasn't the least of it. They then came up with something called the Metatronic cube. We've all heard of the Metatronic cube, which is, I mean, it's a lovely looking geometry, but actually it hides quite a dark secret. It's it fuses, it's been put together by fusing gate structures and twisting and bending the energy currents of them. So galactic portal ways, twisting and bending those energy currents into this cube structure. And that cube structure is used not just to and it's used to broadcast things, but it also collects. So it's from out of this, the reversal energies are run into grids, into constructs and things like this. Broadcast frequencies of false ascended masters, and a lot of them mimic AI architectures and things like this. You know, the false teachings, the false ascended masters, all of these, the channels and stuff like this come from and through what's called this black cube network. And it also harvests, it acts as a harvesting. These black cubes act as harvesting stations for the douche energy that the fallen races feed off. So they act as great harvesting centers and tanks. And the Metatron, the fully fallen Metatron collective, became known as the Yahweh matrix. Now, when we come to talk about Yahweh and what Yahweh has done on this planet, it's not pretty.
Wow. Okay.
Yahweh is the angry, vengeful, murderous, blood-soaked God of the Old Testament.
Okay, so it really has, it's fallen and some.
Yeah.
It's fallen and it's mutated and it,
if I've got to be bad, I'm going to be very, very bad.
okay.
You know?
So taking us back up the rabbit run slightly, when people speak of Metatron and Archangel Metatron, in what ways might they be giving their power away to something that isn't what they think it is?
If it's kind of like part of all of the New Age teachings, it's that giving worship, giving energy, giving you know, when we focus on something, we do a ritual, we do a prayer, we invoke a being or whatever it might be, we're feeding it some of our life force. It's taking energy, intention to do that. And so it's harvesting that and using that, depending upon how deep in you get with it. It's really twisting your perceptions and understandings into the consciousness trap that is the reversal energy, AI, you know, sort of mind control structure.
So it sounds like we're being hoodwinked. We think it's one thing.
Hoodwinked and led down a rabbit hole that is not taking you into ascension, true ascension pathways, but into false ascension pathways.
Okay. So, I mean, you know, if
and there is a but. There's, you know, all of these fallen beings, and there are so many of these sort of rishi consciousness, the dragon beings, and aspects of collectives like the Metatron who have suffered huge damage. In this stage that we're going through at the moment, there is a massive rescue work going on. So a lot of what has been fallen and twisted, the Metatron Logos, for example, has been rescued.
The Metatron what?
Logos.
Oh, what's that?
The Logos. That's the, how would you describe that? The Logos level. Shall we say, you know, if you've got this great collective, there's an identity aspect of it. That identity aspect of it has been rescued.
Okay, so like the pre-fallen energy.
Yeah. So there's rehabilitation, and there's pulling it back together and bringing all the fragments back together and things like that. But it is a work in progress. Okay. I think I've said to you before that you know, the Christos race is part of the promise, or the promise from sources: no soul should be left behind.
Okay, great.
And wherever possible, rescue and rehabilitation, you know, are part of the plan. It's only when the damage has gone so deep there is no possibility of that. You know, space dust return becomes an option, or full fragmentation and implosion of the consciousness.
So the fallen Metatron collective is not at that stage yet, even though it's fallen.
The Metatron Logos has been rescued. Means to me, this is my reading of it, and you know, I may find out more as we go further down this rabbit hole, that I either got it right or I got it wrong. That the Metatron, this vast consciousness from beyond our universe, can be rehabilitated.
All right, brilliant.
which is brilliant. But as I say, you know, there's been some very, very dark stuff that's been done in their name and with their help.
And work in progress. So again, I think it takes us back to this idea of buyer beware. It sounds like there is a pure forerunner energy of the Metatron Collective that is still connectable to on a level.
Yeah, but I would say you know, that pure forerunner hasn't been a frequency ever on this planet. So
Really?
if you're going to connect to it, you'll be connecting it to it through it depends upon your lineage, but through you know, if you have a galactic lineage that leads back into those fields,
Oh,
you'll
okay.
be having to sort of pull the memory of it through from there.
Okay.
It's
So it's
all
possible.
that we've known on this planet is the false Metatron.
All right. So it's possible that the people that work with Metatron on this planet at this time may have that
Yeah.
galactic lineage that you're talking about and maybe being able, consciously or otherwise, to pull through that pure form.
Or it may be they're looking in a dark mirror.
Okay.
So yeah, be very, very careful.
Fascinating, Sarah. Thank you so much. And I'm sure Metatron isn't alone in this story, that there are other similar stories where we, again, it's buyer beware of where we place our power, what we see as our deities, our you know, our higher level beings, just making sure that we're really tuning in at the highest and most purest level, and you know, cancelling any, you know, fallen race elements and going right back to the source consciousness of these races would be why.
I would say, you know, to anybody out there, there is no shame in being hoodwinked by these things. They've done it to all of us.
Okay.
All being caught out by them at one level or another, because they are so good and so clever at what they do.
And bless us, we're all
we have been like lambs to the slaughter because we've been totally unaware that all of this has gone on. Why would you not trust when some being approaches you and speaks with what seems to be the right frequencies? Because you know, they've stolen these frequencies. It seems to be the right words. They seem to hold the right intent. But, you know, instead of leading you left, they take you right.
Okay. Really important, really important. I think again, it's back to our, you know, one of the key messages that's rippling through these recordings is like return to that Christos sense of self.
Come back to yourself. Come back to yourself. And as you know, we've just done a recording on the oversoul. Once you're in the oversoul, you know, if you work to embody the oversoul, once you're into the oversoul, you know, you're going to be seeing these things.
Okay.
You're going to be seeing them. So you start to see. I mean, that's been one of the jobs I've had. It's kind of like, oh Christ, I fell for that. Oh God, I connected into that. Oh God, you know, I did this, that, and the other. You know, I could sit on the pity pot and beat myself up about it all, about how could you be so stupid, and oh, what damage have I done to myself, and all of this. But it's just, you know, disconnect, lesson learned, be more careful next time. And discernment, take more time to check. Don't be so trusting. You know, if I've been, and so many have been you know, guilty of anything, it's been
taken in. Well, we're so, I mean, bless us, we're so keen to try and make improvements and to try and believe in something, you know, bigger and better than the world that we live in, that, like you say, it's easy for the trusting amongst us to want to connect. But something that's, you know, occurring to me is that there have been times in my own journey where I've sort of thought, that doesn't quite seem right. You know, you hear about people talking about angels, and sometimes for me, some of these things just don't quite chime. And I think that when we get that feeling that it's not quite chiming, then that might be our internal kind of subconscious knowing that we're dealing with something that isn't quite as pure as we might think.
And we need to pay attention to it. I mean, I know I've shoved that aside in the past once or twice myself. It's kind of like, oh no, this person, this person's been doing it for much longer than I have. They must know better than me. Yeah.
Amazing. Sarah, again, once again, thank you so much for the insights and for the journey that you've taken us on today. And, you know, it's really beginning to return back to some of our foundational principles in these conversations. And I love it when that happens, when you start going back to a thread that you picked up before, you're like, oh, there it is again, you know, and there's a reassuring feeling to that, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, yeah. So hopefully that's been useful. I hope it hasn't traumatized anybody. I mean, again, you know, contact me if you've got any questions and things like this, because some of this can be big stuff. But otherwise, we'll see you again next time, hopefully. So thank you, Wendy, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.